Hi everybody, welcome back to the AstralUrmah channel. I'm Jacob Angelakis and today we're going to be talking about Venus. Venus is my favorite place in the solar system because it is a paradise planet and I want to go there, okay? I believe that with our awareness we can travel there through astral travel, through dreams, dreamscapes, remote viewing, and the whole nine yards. Here's an idea of what it's like there. This is not the one you've been, programmed to believe in. That NASA says that Venus is a hellhole, 900 degrees surface temperatures, and clouds made of sulfuric acid raining down from the sky. That's completely ridiculous. Okay, that's not Venus. That's a projection, and it's just a filtered version of something they don't want you to see. The truth is that Venus is the most beautiful place in the entire solar system. It's an actual paradise. A tropical world full of warmth, life, and harmony. And it's habitable and it is habitated. Okay? In fact, it's even better suited for human life than Earth. Okay? Let that sink in for a second. That's probably not too hard for you to believe, actually. See, when Earth scientists aim their telescopes and sensors at Venus, they're only reading frequencies allowed within the 3D matrix. The Van Allen bands act as a frequency filter, and anything beyond that gets cut off. And what we see from Earth is a distorted echo. Just the lower spectrum emissions. That's why Venus appears so hostile. But that's not what's really there. That's just a mask. And that's what life is all about, seeing beneath the mask. Because beyond that mask, Venus is vibrant, it's clean, and it's radiant. It has clean oceans, islands, forests, palm trees, and so much more. The climate is temperate and steady, hovering around 30 degrees Celsius or 85 degrees Fahrenheit on average. And the air is so pure, it feels like you're breathing light. And it activates your cells, it restores your energy, and it literally begins to regenerate your DNA. Okay? Venus is alive, and it used to be open. There were travel routes between Earth and Venus, mostly through Antarctica, where shuttles would pass between the two planets before the Federation implemented their blockade. But the connection never stopped, and there are many reasons for that, okay? Venus and Earth are not separate in the way that we imagine. From a stellar perspective, Venus is Earth's sister. The Federation even refers to it as the annex of Earth. And how close it is energetically and biologically, around 80% of the animal and plant species are shared between Earth and Venus. So think about that. That's not a coincidence. That's a shared template, okay? The people like Venus, very much like us. You know, most Venusians were Nordic in appearance, tall, blonde, and light-haired, spiritually advanced. They were very peaceful. Their society was simple, but not primitive. Think of like ancient Greece, but cleaner, wiser, and more connected to source with better technology. They used holographic technologies to complement nature, not to control it. But they didn't have much in terms of military defense, and they weren't expecting what was coming. But that's for part two. Today, the Venus you're allowed to see is nothing more than a smokescreen. The real Venus is cloaked, and here's the kicker. It's not empty, it's full. And it's not just full of plants and birds or ancient Venusians, but with specific people, okay? The Cabal. The Cabal took Venus for themselves, and it is now a paradise planet for the elite. I'm not talking about the same figures who run, I am talking about the same figures who run the governments, the earth governments, the banks, the big pharma, and the war machines. They go to Venus to escape Earth's destructive frequencies, to rejuvenate and to hide, and to live out their fantasy version of Earth without the mess. There are 5-star hotels, island resorts, jet skis, nightclubs, yachts, holographic entertainment, the whole works. And that's Venus now, okay? And you wonder why certain elites disappear, why they don't age, why someone like George Soros looks embalmed but somehow never dies? Because they spend time in a frequency where the body heals. The DNA reactivates and the conscious is not constantly assaulted by the matrix. That's the frequency of Venus. But the average person, we may never see Venus like that. Not because it's hidden in space, but because it's hidden in our perception. 3D and 5D aren't locations. They're not coordinates. They're mental states and your frequency depends on what you decode. Okay? That's why soldiers who were taken there to Venus during the war, and yes, we'll get into that in part 2, didn't even realize they weren't in Vietnam because the terrain looked close enough. And they were in just such a dense state mentally and emotionally that all they saw was what matched their belief system. Okay? And there's a big lesson in all of this. They brought the Matrix with them when they projected it onto paradise, and they never knew that they were on Venus. And that's the game. That's how this entire system operates. It's not about walls and chains. It's about beliefs and filters. That's the real prison. And that's the real theft. Venus didn't get destroyed. It got rebranded, hijacked by perception, and cloaked behind a veil, a narrative of science fiction and fear, so that the elite could move in unchallenged and claim it for themselves. But here's the truth: you still can access Venus. Not with a ship, not with technology, but with your frequency, with your mind, with how you vibrate. Venus responds to awareness. It always has. And maybe it's not lost. Maybe it's just waiting for us to remember who we are, waiting for us to lift the veil, waiting for us to come home, not to Venus, but to ourselves. Or maybe for some of you, to Venus. Maybe Venus was your home, and now you're here on Earth, okay? But that's it for now. In part 2, we're going to talk about what happened on Venus, the invasion, and the genocide. The covert war that was covered up by a Vietnam conflict. Okay, what really happened there, who was behind it, and how they pulled the strings off without the world ever knowing. But for now, sit with this, let it sink in. Venus isn't hell, it's a complete paradise planet. And I hope someday we can all travel there physically and see it for ourselves. All right, continue to, step into your callings and do the good work that you guys are doing. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in part 2.